All right, let's dive into something that's probably on the mind of every parent and educator out there. We're talking about our kids, right? How in the world do we get them ready for a future that's, well, changing so fast we can barely keep up? It feels like the old rules for success just don't apply anymore. So let's try and figure out what this all means.
And really, that's the big question, isn't it? We hear all these terms thrown around, like Society 5.0, which is basically this idea of a future where our digital lives and our real lives are completely blended. And if you're a parent, a teacher, anyone who cares about the next generation, that kind of uncertainty, it's a real worry.
So to even begin to find an answer, we've got to get a handle on the world our kids are actually growing up in. And folks, it is a world that has been totally transformed by what we call the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And this stuff, it's not some far-off sci-fi movie anymore. We're talking about things like AI, the Internet of Things, cloud systems. These aren't just trendy buzzwords. No, they're the actual building blocks of the world our kids live in. They're basically growing up inside this giant interconnected digital web that, honestly, we're still just trying to wrap our own heads around.
Yeah, and this image really gets to the heart of it, you know? It's so easy to get caught up in all the tech talk, but when you boil it all down, it's about them, our kids. They're the very first generation to be born into this incredibly complex digital world. They're true digital natives.
Okay, so if the world is so radically different, that brings up the next big, slightly scary question. What jobs are we even preparing them for? I mean, think about it. So many of the career paths we knew are just disappearing, and they're being replaced by jobs that 10 years ago we couldn't have even dreamed up.
Just look at this list. This is from the World Economic Forum. Data analyst, AI specialist, big data specialist. Wow, it's all so technical, so incredibly specific. And honestly, seeing a list like this can be pretty intimidating, right? It just makes you throw your hands up and ask, how on earth am I supposed to prepare my kid for that when everything is so specialized and changing all the time?
And that question, it leads us right to the central idea we're exploring today, because the source material we're looking at suggests that maybe, just maybe, we're asking the wrong question. What if instead of prepping our kids for a specific job, we focused on helping them become a specific type of person? And that's where this idea of the adaptive child comes in.
So what is an adaptive child? Well, the definition is actually pretty simple, but really powerful. It's a child who has the intelligence to adapt to their surroundings. And that word, intelligence, is key here. We're not talking about adaptability as just some nice-to-have soft skill. No, this way of thinking frames it as the single most important form of intelligence for the future.
But being adaptive isn't just one thing. Think of it more like a toolkit of inner strengths. We're talking high emotional intelligence, or EQ, being able to manage stress effectively, thinking creatively to solve problems, and of course, really understanding digital technology. These aren't just skills for a resume, they're skills for life. They're tools that will be useful no matter what the future throws at them.
Okay, that all sounds great, but how do you actually build those skills? What's the secret ingredient that helps a kid become both adaptive and resilient? Well, according to our source, it all comes down to one incredibly powerful internal engine: passion.
And to really get why passion is so important, it's kind of helpful to look at how our whole idea of what makes someone smart or successful has changed over time. For the longest time, it was all about one thing: IQ, right? Just raw brain power.
But then we had this huge breakthrough. We started to understand the power of emotional intelligence, or EQ. We realized that being able to understand and handle your own emotions and read other people's, that was maybe the real secret sauce for success, no matter what decade you're in.
And that brings us right up to today. Now, the argument is that the new X factor, the thing that really matters, is grit. You might also hear it called the adversity quotient, or AQ. This is all about mental toughness. It's about resilience. It's that stubborn refusal to give up when things get hard. And ultimately, that's what powers our ability to adapt.
So how in the world do you build grit in a kid? Well, the source breaks it down into 3 pretty clear steps. And just look at number 1. What's the very first step? Find what they love. See? Passion isn't just some fluffy, nice-to-have thing. It's the launch pad. Because when a kid genuinely loves something, the practice, the hard work, the sense of purpose, it all just flows naturally. And that's how they build up that grit muscle.
So, it seems our mission as parents and educators is to help our kids find that passion. But let's be real, that could be tough. How do you figure out what truly makes someone tick?
The material we're looking at gets into a few interesting approaches that kind of makes new school data with old school guidance to see the whole person.
It's basically a two-part strategy. On one side, you have what's called psychometric analysis. You know, the more traditional stuff like counseling, talking, and just observing a child. But on the other side, it introduces this idea of biometric analysis, using things like fingerprint scans to gather data points. The whole idea is to combine the two, the hard data and the human connection, to get a much clearer sense of what a child's natural talents and interests might be.
Now it's really important to understand what this biometric analysis is and isn't. According to the source, it's not an IQ test. It's not about saying a kid is smart or not smart. The idea is to use it as a tool to find clues about their natural learning style, their innate talents, maybe even their core character. The theory is that these little data points can help point us in the right direction to find that unique passion.
Okay, so this all leads to the final and I think maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. It's a fundamental shift in our thinking. To really get our kids ready for what's coming, we have to totally redefine the goal. We have to stop focusing so much on external results and start focusing on helping them build a strong internal identity.
And this chart here really lays it out perfectly. The old way of thinking was all about results. It was, I need to get a good grade, or I have to get this specific job. But this new way of thinking is all about identity. The focus changes. It's not about the grade, it's about, I want to be the kind of person who loves to learn, or I want to be a creative problem solver. You see the difference? It's all fueled by who you are and what you love, not just some goalpost someone else set.
So, when you take a step back, what's the real endgame here? What are we trying to achieve with all this? Well, it's not just about getting them into a fancy job that pays well. The real goal is to help raise a child who has a higher happiness index, someone who feels fulfilled, who can bounce back from anything, and who is living a life that feels truly, authentically theirs.
And that leaves us with one last really interesting thought from the source material. It calls this new era, Industry 4.0, a paradox. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. In a world that's becoming more and more about AI, robots, and automation, it seems the key to success is actually becoming more human, more passionate, more resilient, more ourselves. The real question is, are we ready to help our kids make that shift?